Hello, welcome. This is the Trumpet of Hope. Jitago Captain Jorogawajeri. I hope you are doing well wherever you are. I have Wendy, one of the peer educators right here in Washington State, USA, and she has a beautiful testimony, a story of her life. She has been through so much, and here she is, having come out of one of the lowest moments in a diasporian or a Kenyan in the diaspora. We have had many stories of Kenyans in the diaspora who have gotten in trouble. Some have not recovered from that trouble. Wendy,
Yes.
how are you?
Ndi mwega piu. Njĩtagwo Wendy wa Mwangi. I hope my story gives exactly that to someone out there and to my fellow diasporans.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So Wendy, take us through your life of birth and growth.
So I was born in Nairobi of two parents, my late father Simon Mwangi Magothe and my mother Beatrice Jerry wa Mwangi. Typical home, middle class family. My parents were deeply rooted in Christianity. They are both from staunch Christian backgrounds, especially my mother. And growing up, I cannot say I lacked anything.
Yeah.
My parents worked hard. They provided, all our needs were met. I cannot say I did not grow up in poverty or anything like that. They did the best they could for us.
Beautiful.
I am the firstborn in my family of 3, and I'm the only girl.
Oh,
Yes.
Nice. Nice. Did you go to primary school in Kenya?
Yes, I did. I was born in an area called Buruburu. I don't know if you're familiar.
Anu wase wa Buru.
Yes, ni watu wa Buru. Born and bred. Pale phase 3.
Okay.
Nikaanza nursery hapo. I couldn't tell you what the nursery school was called. But I went to nursery school, pre-unit nikaingia a school called Bluebells primary school. It was pale karibu na Buruburu High School, right next to Buruburu High School. As you enter Buruburu, that's where I went to primary school up until class 4.
Okay.
Class 4 for 1 year, I joined Baraka Primary, also in Buruburu. And then from there, my parents decided, before uharibike sana, let us take you to boarding school. So I was
Kwani ulikuwa unaharibika?
I mean, Buruburu, you know, it's just your typical neighborhood, but you know, being in Nairobi, there was so much influence, and my parents wanted to protect me from that, especially being a girl.
Nyinyi ndio mlikuwa watu wa K kwenda nini Mugithi Rebo?
Pale hivyo K, what was it called? Florida F2.
F2.
Yes, those days it was F2. Believe it or not, I never made it to F2 myself.
Okay.
Yes, but my peers did. So my mother was not taking chances. Neither was my dad.
Strict.
Very strict. And they decided it's time for boarding school.
Okay.
And I took it well because I had some relatives that were schooling with me, so I was excited. And of course, being away from home, hautachapa-chapa sana. Hautachapa-chapa. Hakuna viboko ovyo, you know. So class 5, I went to Diplomat Academy in Kirugoya. It's a private school, very nice school. And that's where my journey of independence began, pretty much. Because ukiwa boarding school, you are in the midst of a larger community.
Yes.
And the school quality, the education quality that I received there was top notch. Class 8, I graduated from there, and I got an opportunity to join Giriambu High School.
Giriambu High School.
Yes, in Kianyaga County. So that's why I went to high school. And I mean, in this day and era where kids get expelled, I never had those kinds of problems.
Wow,
the only problem I experienced in both of my senior years, both in class 8 and Form 4, the teachers had gone on strike on both of my years doing KCSE and KCPE. And so again, there was an air of independence. The teachers were really absent. and we felt that. But it did not stop me from, performing well. And I graduated in the year 2002.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, some of the highlights in your education years in Kenya, what are some of the unique highlights that you can remember?
I remember joining journalism club, drama club, music. I was in all the schools provided those platforms. So we were able to nurture our creative side.
Nice.
And I feel like that's very important, because that was an opportunity for us to be able to build on our expression as kids. And, I would come home and tell my mom of my little, experiences going for the festivals. And, I remember her telling me, "Do the festival, muno." You still need to perform.
Yes.
I was in everything, I believe. Besides games, I used to really, really despise, games. Sijui cross country huko ungenipata, lakini huku
muziki na
mimi
dramas.
muziki na drama. In fact, I was entertainment captain by the time.
I can tell. Ndio walikuwa mnatupeleka mbio.
Tulikuwa tunaenda tunaomba radio, tunaomba mwalimu, tafadhali tusaidie na hiyo sound system yako, at least we play some music, just to feel like, weekend, what do you call it? Recreation. And it was a good experience. I wasn't very much homesick for long, even though some days I got frustrated. And I would go tell my parents, I want to transfer from that school.
Oh my goodness.
And they would tell me, once you find a new one, let us know. We will transfer immediately.
Wow, thank you so much.
Yeah.
We are together with Wendy Mwangi, or simply Wendy. Wendy lives here in Washington State, USA. And this is an episode that I'm starting up on peer educators. Most people who have come into this country know very well that we have had issues with Kenyans coming in, not just Kenyans, immigrants coming in, and they get cultured into issues that end up messing their lives. And that here is one of the stories of a Kenyan success girl who came in and things happened. What happened? Stay tuned. This is the Trumpet of Hope. Okay, now, Giriambu after that.
Went to Giriambu. I graduated 2002, and immediately, you get now into, you slowly get transitioned into college life. So I believe I did the basics, computer, driving. My parents made sure I was with the program as far as those things. I did computer at IAT, Institute of Advanced Technology. Then I did my driving school in AA of Kenya.
High end.
I'm telling you, these parents, they really did what they needed to do.
Yes.
And then after that, my parents asked, what else do you think you would want to, get to know? Build on. In high school and both in primary and high school, I did French. So I was enrolled into Alliance Française.
Kwisha. Man. Top cream.
Hapo sasa, hapo ndio, I would say now the excitement of, oh my goodness, I'm finally out of high school.
Yes.
And I'm commuting from home to Alliance Française. All the way pale karibu na University of Nairobi.
I see.
So I joined and I was doing well. I was, of course, very interested in the language of French. But on top of that, there was more culture, more exposure. And, my mother at that time had she had already come to the US.
So you were the one?
Yes. I was the eldest in my family. I have younger siblings. In fact, my follower is 7 years younger than me. So there was a huge gap. Yeah. And naturally, she would send money. She would send me Western Union. Those days, akukwa na Sendwave, none of that. So I remember every 2 weeks, I believe, she would send me some pocket money to cover for my, fare and, my needs going to school. But, being a curious teenager, straight out of high school, you're blending in with other people. In fact, there were people from outside the country at Alliance Française. Naturally, you want to explore more. And the money was not all going to fare, put it that way. I would maybe get into the little joints, I want to call them, pale Nairobi city. Class ikisha saa 7, you decide nitafika home by 5, lakini between saa 7 na hii 5 I will do my little adventure and get into some areas there, restaurants I would call them, but at night they would be nightclubs. And so slowly but surely I started just getting to know more and getting exposed more. And I would say at that point I learned about alcohol. And my peers were drinking. It didn't seem like a big deal. I don't have to drive anywhere. Kimaliza shughuli yangu naingia kwa matatu naenda nyumbani. Typical, and I had fun. It was all fun and games at that point.
Okay.
Yes.
So when did you taste alcohol at first time?
To be honest, when I was 12 years old.
12 years?
I was in class 6.
Class 6?
Yes. Hapa nimeingia boarding. Nimekuja home for the holidays. And my dad had affiliations with wines and spirits. He had businesses of that nature. So anything in excess would be at home as stock. And of course, he was also someone who would enjoy his drink. And of course, I got curious. Wazazi kama wako nyumbani, you're idle, you're not in school, you haven't done that homework you had brought home from school for the holidays. I decided, what is this that they always drinking here and me, I can't taste it. So I got curious. And I want to say, I used to, those 2 wines that come in a box? I would grab the ice cream cup and just take a little, kidogo tu, and try and taste it. I'm like, doesn't taste good. At that point, you really don't know what it is, but you're curious only on the strength of why is my dad taking this? And why is it at every birthday party or every event, there's this, drink here that we cannot access. Si tunapewa soda kwa nini? That's where my curiosity started. But I did not engage in drinking until in college. Now, Alliance Francaise, that's when I would go and buy my little Smirnoff Ice, tuwili. Unasikia uko na kabazi kidogo, you rush home quickly. You're approaching with caution because you don't want habari ifike kwa mama yangu pale majuu, alafu fans katike. I at that time was under the care of my dad and my mom's sister. So they kept up with me.
Hawangejua?
No, I was very good at, I was very composed. I was a composed girl. I've never been one to be shy. I was never a shy girl anyway. So I would just get home, and as long as you cover your base, kama ulikuwa umeambiwa upike sapa imeiva, kama umeambiwa oshe vyombo zimeoshwa.
You cover your base.
Yeah, you cover your base completely. Yeah. Nobody will catch on to it. Dad would come late at home after midnight. Of course, we are in bed at that point.
Now, come to this because this is important. There are so many kids whose parents are in the diaspora.
Diaspora, yeah.
Either here in the US or Middle East or Europe. What is that one advice, or what would you tell them, the parents and also the kids?
I think that's where we start missing each other, because for one, being in boarding school, you're already away from home. So you're already exposed to other factors. But for parents who have children back home, like myself, currently I have children back home, it is very important to keep up with what they are doing, especially in this era of video calls, phone calls. It's also important to know exactly who you left your kids with, because relatives are family. We trust them without question. But there could be influences that are not very positive coming from them. That was not my case. My auntie was also just like my mom. Went to the choir, very staunch Christian. Anglican church is where we grew up. So, but that's not the case with all the parents. Some people, I had peers who would receive money from parents from the diaspora, which was a lot of money. My mom alikuwa ananitumia just enough. I was creative. But there's people I saw receiving massive amounts of money. And at that time, I don't think they had the capacity to process what they had in hand.
Yeah.
I even had a friend whose parent had bought them a Mercedes Benz. Iko kwa parking, inangojea akuwe na license ndio drive. Imagine that being the first vehicle you're driving. I think parents do this because of the guilt of being away from their kids.
Oh, they are trying to cover up the guilt.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly the problem.
How do we cover up that now that you have kids who are at home? How do we cover that absence?
By communicating. I cannot say I have always been good at that, because on my end as a parent, I go through some sort of, I won't say some sort of, a depression of absence from your children. Remember, these are kids, these are my own children out of my own womb. We were connected by,
The cord.
the cord. And once you sever that cord and then sever it more by being away from them, it does something to you as a parent. At least for me, that's what happened. And I believe the journey of my mother was the same. Now, when there's that discord, things get in the way. The person you live with your children, the person you entrust your children with really matters. The amount of money you send for your upkeep, for their upkeep back home also matters. And then there's those kids who just don't even get enough. Say if you send the money through a relative that is supposed to be handed over to the children, they don't get enough of that also. There's a problem because you're creating kids who don't have enough. Now you're creating avenues for theft. You're creating avenues for them to be depressed as well because they feel wanateswa. So there's just a lot that it's a whole it's a concoction of things that happen there.
Wow. Let's come to this. What are some of the most painful or depressing moments now when you are here and the children are at home?
The milestones I've missed. Luckily for me, I was there from birth up until when they were like, my oldest son was, the first trip to the US was in 2014. And my son was born in 2004. So he was 10 years. Those first 10 years of his life, I was there consistently, to where I never even used to entertain like hiring a house help. I did not entertain those things so much because I just had, enough. I was blessed to be able to do business from home. And at the time I was married too. So I was able to do business to where I'm a housewife, but I'm also making money. So at the time, up until when they are 10, when I'm leaving, the other one was 4 years behind him. He was 6. I would say from birth to that point, I was there. But then when I transitioned here, they were entering preteen, and I missed those milestones. That to me was a very low moment. I'm talking birthdays, school plays, school sports day, just the little things that kids invite you for. I missed all that. And I only had the privilege to see photos. At the time, there was not even so much social media than photo yenye imepigwa na photographer. I could long for those so much. And if you didn't have someone on the ground that could provide that, fill up that gap, it would be very depressing. So that was the beginning of my decline here. The depression, the stress, the loneliness, a biting loneliness, Captain. It's very biting. You see other kids here, Halloween, let's go trick or treat. I don't have my kids. And it's American culture. Courtesy is they'll ask you, do you have kids? Where are they? That question always bothers me because to some it looks like you abandoned your children. But in truth, I came here for greener pastures.
Oh, tell me, do you think that the society judges parents who are here without their kids harshly?
Very harshly. I've been judged a lot personally. I'll speak from a personal point. And it's not been easy. Even, because I was married and then I got divorced, and that's how I ended up here too. People that, potential suitors that came later would absolutely condemn me for that. Why did you leave your children? there had to be other ways to do it, and there was no understanding whatsoever. But we'd never judge. Mostly men don't get judged like women do. I mean, you're a mother, for God's sake. Why would you leave your children and go seek for greener pastures away from them?
Mm-hmm.
But the problems you have in Kenya are ridiculous. I've come to the US and done a full internship and training in my line of, my career, which is culinary arts,
Mm-hmm.
a chef. And I've gone to Kenya and looked for a job for a whole year and did not get employed because the person hiring you is intimidated by your experience already. So that in itself was a problem. I came here for a training for 1 year, all areas of the hotel, front of the house, back of the house, thinking that I'm building on my resume. But going back home, I approached all these big establishments in Kenya and could not get a job.
Even despite having trained here.
Especially that was a problem. And I sat down and I wondered, what is broken in our system? Why am I not able to get a job?
Mm-hmm.
And it's corruption too. There's a godfather system that is very strong in Kenya, where it's who you know and who you're connected to. I was not connected to anybody. I just had the qualifications that were needed. And some would genuinely tell you, we can't afford you. We simply cannot afford you. And so for that, if I had not saved up some money from here to survive with there,
so
it was bad.
Tupeleke polepole.
Mhm.
This is very hapa kuna maneno.
Mhm.
So, okay, you came here
Mhm.
after Alliance.
After Alliance, I joined Utalii College.
Mm-hmm.
And there I found an opportunity, a scholarship to come here under a J1 visa. It's called a Summer Work Travel Cultural Exchange Program.
Mm-hmm.
I found an organization called American Hospitality Academy. To this day, they still do the same. They give people in hospitality industry an opportunity to come and do internships or even like longer periods of training up to 1 year. Just exposure and cultural exchange.
For those who may not understand, J1 visa.
J1 visa is strictly a training visa or an internship visa for whatever area or field of study you want to specialize in.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to acquire that while I was still in Utalii College, and I was given permission by the college for 4 months to come and pursue my internship here.
Okay.
So while others were, spread across Kenya doing their internships, I got an opportunity to come to the US to do the same. For us, we were brought together by the common factor, which is a cultural exchange. So there was a lot of activity in there where we got to really, get to know each other. We would experience each other cooking, and we had stipends, we had transportation to go to our work sites. They place you in actual work situations. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was placed in a hotel. It was called Kingston Plantation. And in this Kingston Plantation, it carries Embassy Suites Hotel and Hilton Hotel. High end. So, and there, of course, you're on payroll. You're given a stipend. They tell you you're not getting paid, but you're getting tips. Mm-hmm. In America, there's a tip culture.
No. As we proceed on, I know there are other areas that we want to discuss with Wendy, especially being an episode on peer educators. Wendy fell out, and there were reasons to fall out. I don't know whether I would take it as a reason to fall out, but there are things, circumstances, and environments that made her fall out. And she will take us through how she fell out with the law, how she fell out with, herself, and what happened after that. We may not be able to manage this right now. We have been talking with Wendy.
My story is about the law and getting in trouble with the law. And it started so innocently. I did not realize I was veering in the wrong direction until I got caught up. So parents, be careful. Put it in mind from the beginning of this journey, how this American dream can manifest in your family in a positive way and not in a way that will bring distraction, and even in some cases death. Serious talk. So stay tuned. There's so much to talk about. I will walk you step by step with my story. And this story is purely to give someone hope and to know that restoration is possible, and know that there is so much resources around us to where you can pick yourself up again and restart your life on your own terms. Yeah. Na si kila saa, si kila mtu atafanya nursing, sijui tracking. We need to stay away from those careers because now they're becoming saturated. We need to explore other options. Peer counseling, for example, what I do, just talking about mental health. Those things have suffered a lot amongst us Kenyans. And I was a healthcare worker at some point. And in that healthcare job, I really did suffer great depression and a very bad habit of alcohol use. So I am currently in recovery and no longer in the healthcare business per se, but I'm definitely taking care of humanity in a different way with sharing my story and just encouraging those people who are suffering from mental health, mental challenges, alcohol and substance use. It's a huge problem amongst us as a community.